let's take a look at question number 31 from section 11.7. This is using data that you'll find on page 656 of the textbook. They give some information there about the probability that U.S. adults would suffer from various ailments. And what they did is they gave information for the general population's probability of suffering from these ailments, and then also people who are tobacco dependent, their probability of suffering from those ailments. And from that chart, if you look at it, if you look under the category of anxiety panic disorder, the probability that a smoker suffers from anxiety and panic disorder is 0.19. So this information is coming straight from that chart on page 656. So question 31 asks us, what is the probability that at least one smoker has anxiety panic disorder if you ask 3 smokers? And it's not immediately obvious what we need to do here, this at least one. It's not something that we have a tool to deal with yet, but the tool is actually on page 651, top of page 651 in your textbook, the probability of an event happening at least once. So we're going to call this the probability of an event happening at least once. I'm kind of shortening it, so the PE halo here. So the probability that it happens at least once is actually equal to 1 minus the probability that the event doesn't happen. Okay? So this is what we need to think about. If we want to find out the probability that this is going to happen at least once, we need to figure out that the probability of it not happening. And this is kind of an algebra thing. If you're wondering where this comes from, this isn't magic. The probability of an event not happening plus the probability of it happening equals 1. That's something that we know. If we want to figure out the probability of something not happening, we subtract the probability of it happening. I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to confuse you, but basically the probability of an event happening at least once is just 1 minus the probability that it doesn't happen at all. So we need to figure out the probability that if we ask 3 smokers that they do not suffer from this panic anxiety disorder. So what we need is the probability that it doesn't happen. So the probability that they don't suffer. So probability they don't is just going to be 1 minus this 0.19. So that's going to be 0.81. That's the probability it doesn't happen for one person. If I ask one person, the probability that this one smoker doesn't have anxiety panic disorder is 0.81. But I have to ask 3 smokers. So what we need right now is 1 minus 0.81 for the first smoker, and I'll put these in parentheses here, times 0.81 for the second smoker, times 0.81 for the third smoker. So this is what we need to figure out the probability that at least one does have it. We need to figure out 1 minus the probability that 3 don't have it. And this is something we can just punch into our calculators now. I don't know if we can see the calculator without glare. I don't think so. But basically you're just going to do, you're going to turn it on, 1 minus, and we'll put this in parentheses, 0.81 times 0.81 times 0.81. And the answer for that is, I'll write it down here, that's 0.468559. And your textbook has asked you to round that to 4 decimal places. So when I round it, that's 0.4686, which is the answer that you'll find in the back of the textbook. So you just have to remember that the probability that something happens at least once is 1 minus the probability that it doesn't happen at all.